In this video, I want to talk about my first impressions with Resident Evil 8, or Resident Evil Village as it's called. This game comes out today for most everyone, and I've played about 5 hours so far, and I thought I would just give you guys my quick thoughts, what I think about the game so far. Huge disclaimer first, which is I have not played Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, so it's hard for me to give a general comparison between the two games, but I will just say, looking at the gameplay footage of Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, the gameplay looks very, very similar to what you see in Resident Evil 8, and I think they're probably not too different. So if you liked Resident Evil 7's gameplay, you will probably like Resident Evil 8's gameplay as well. Probably the biggest surprise for me with Resident Evil 8, besides having to get used to sort of the first-person perspective after playing Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 remakes, is the setting of the game. It almost has a Romanian, Transylvanian type setting for a chunk of the game, at least what I've played so far. And it's kind of unexpected. When you think of Resident Evil, you typically think of like destroyed cities or, modern society with, all this stuff everywhere. And indeed, there is a little bit of that even in this kind of village, if you will. But it has a very, castle-y, old school Transylvania vibe. And it was really unexpected, and it's something that I really, really enjoyed as I got more and more familiar with it. The story so far, without getting into spoilers or anything like that, is, I would say it's pretty average. It's enough to carry you through the game, but it's nothing mind-blowing. It's basically, I think, probably what you'd expect from a Resident Evil game. They have decent stories that, bring the game along and decent characters, but I don't think anyone's going to give these games, like, Story of the Year or anything like that. There's enough story there to propel you forward, but I feel like the setting of the game is what really carries it, and obviously the gameplay. Resident Evil 8 starts off kind of slow from a gameplay perspective. It ramps up to 100 in terms of story, like, real fast. But in terms of gameplay, it's kind of slow. Like you're going around and you're like, okay, what am I doing here? I don't quite understand why I'm here. What's happening? It takes probably a good hour or two before you start to like figure out what's going on and you get familiar. And it really picks up from that point, in my opinion. And I'm really looking forward to playing more. We're going to be streaming that on Twitch today, probably right around the time this video is out. So if you're watching this, there's a good chance we're going to be live when this comes out. At first, I was kind of like, I'm not so sure about this because the setting of the game is so drastically different than other Resident Evil games. I think it's probably going to be a love it or hate it for most people. It feels a little less like Resident Evil than maybe previous games have, even though you're playing the same protagonist as you were in the previous game. But the core concepts are still there. Once you start, finding keys and opening locked doors and getting pieces of a puzzle and putting it together, you start to recognize it's Resident Evil right away. But you sort of got to get used to that sort of Transylvanian setting, if you will. I don't know how long the game is, but based on what people have been saying, I basically made it about a third of the way through the game in about 5 hours. So I imagine it's probably going to take you somewhere between 10 to 15 hours, depending on the difficulty of the game, to get through the game once. That's pretty typical for Resident Evil games, in my opinion. Usually, a lot of the value in these games is playing them again for challenges or finding all the secrets. So that's, what to be expected there, or not something that's shocking to me. I don't think that's low. That's pretty typical for these games. But keep that in mind. If you're one of those people who'll just play it once, then I don't think this is a game that you're going to want to buy for full price, because 10 to 15 hours tends to be a bit low. But if you're one of those people that's a completionist, or you want to see every aspect, you really like the lore and story of these games, then you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck. The last thing I want to talk about is performance. Playing on my Corsair One Pro, the performance was very poorly optimized, in my opinion. A lot of people always say, wait for a day one patch. I don't know if there's a day one patch coming with this game or not, because we were playing pre-launch. But I heard the same thing about Outriders, and that day one patch did not fix my issues with that game. But this game has a similar problem, which is like every minute or two, there's like a hang, kind of just like Outriders had. I'm starting to think it's something to do with modern software, and the Unreal 4 engine or something like that. I don't know exactly what engine this game uses, but I'm starting to think there's some sort of compatibility issue, because I'm seeing this in more and more games, and it has yet to be like ironed out consistently. But there are some hangups there, and there is some massive, massive frame drops. It seems like if you get grabbed by an enemy, it seems like the frame drops plummet into the single digits, and this happens repeatedly when you get grabbed. And I have a beast of a gaming system, so there's no way that should be happening, especially since my settings are nowhere near max when I'm playing. The game looks really, really good. Visually, the game is gorgeous, but there are a lot of performance issues, and frankly, if you don't have a beast of a system, I think you're going to have a difficult time playing this game. And even then, you're going to have probably some issues. I do have a PS5 version of the game. I have not fired it up, so I don't know if that stuttering issue is still there on console. But I would say if you're planning to get it on PC, you may want to wait and see if they can patch and fix that issue, because it is jarring and it is really, really annoying.